You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Hasbro is coming to town. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, my fellow nerdlings. How are you today? It is your favorite Grinch, the OGGM. Drinking coffee. It's 9 o'clock. It's the 18th day of December of 2023. Christmas countdown has begun. It's Monday, which means it's time to take a look at the stormy seas of the tabletop role-playing game world. Vast and set sail. Time to take out our charts, get out our compass, chart the stars with our sextant, sextant, and take a look at the stories that are vast, shaping the tabletop role-playing game world this week. And hey, good news! G Gygax is out of the hospital. He's doing fine. Apparently, he's back running a game. So, congratulations, Ernie. You made your saving throw yet again, and you are still around to continue to entertain us with the wonders of your amazing imagination. Hopefully, 2024 will be a better year for you and your family than 2023 was, and you stay far away as you can from the Justin Lanasa nonsense. Legacy of Worlds has been announced. Legacy of Worlds is the planned Adventurers League official D&D conversion thingy for 2024. Such luminaries as Luke Gygax and Keith Baker are somehow involved with it, and will be premiering at GaryCon. So, as we know, there were some questions regarding the fate of the Adventurers League with the 2024 D&D changes coming. We were most likely thinking we were going to see some type of transformation around February or March, and then they announced that they were going to be, killing off the entire Adventurers League line and restarting with this new golden age of multiversal planar stuff, and they're calling it, the official name is Legacy of Worlds. So starting in 2024, we will have the multiverse adventurers starting with Legacy of World, and Ed Greenwood will be there playing Elminster, and then from there we will have all the year-long storylines that I guess explain what's going on in the D&D multiverse, perhaps explain the drastic changes, maybe, or maybe not. Anyways, there'll be some live plays, and then the actual adventurers will be available to us for the people who are in the Adventurers League starting March-ish. Let's see. Yeah, it starts with Proxy Hunt on March 22nd. So that's the official start of the transformation of Adventurers League. Pre-2024 D&D into post-2024 D&D with the Proxy Hunt Adventurers League Planescape Epic featuring Keith Baker, Luke Gygax, neighbors, we live close to each other, and Ed Greenwood. I was curious about what Ed's relationship with Wizards is, because he still makes stuff for the realms, but it's all like, DM's Guild stuff. Let's see, is there anything else going on really in the world? Yeah. We've got the, everybody's making their lists of the best tabletop role-playing games of the year. We've got the Polygon list. I'm sure we'll have the other lists that we'll go through this week and next week to see what each individual company thinks is the best, whether we agree or disagree, how obscure some of the games are, and what people consider the best this year. And then, of course, for next year, people are already putting up their most anticipated RPGs for 2024. There doesn't seem to be a clear winner. Most of the responses to the question is, I would like to see games that were announced in 2023 actually come out, like Pendragon 6th edition, stuff like that, or games that released a starter set in 2023 actually released a full entire game in 2024. So interesting that nobody's saying like, oh yeah, there's distinct microscope of people going, yes, I definitely want Tales of the Valiant, or I definitely want this game or that game. No, it's a lot of these responses are, there was a game that was supposed to come out that didn't come out. I'm hoping it comes out next year. Humbug. I'm sure that means something. I don't know what. And I guess that's it. I guess nothing else happened this week. I guess that there was nothing else newsworthy. I'm just going to go and enjoy the rain. All right, you guys did. But wait. Oh, there was one more thing that I guess we need to talk about because we haven't talked about it enough. And we need to now kind of talk about the Fallout. It's amazing. And Hasbro has been remained pretty much the #1 topic of conversation for an entire year. So from a Hasbro point of view, hey, look at all the free press we're getting. You guys can't stop talking about us. People give me so much crap. You guys don't see some of the comments about just, how I pander to Hasbro and how I pander to Wizards of the Coast. And for somebody who hates Wizards of the Coast so much, you sure talk about them. I get a lot, from people who claim. My favorite are the ghost accounts, the puppet accounts. People who was like, dude, I know who you are. I recognize your style of writing. Just making up a ghost account because you've been banned doesn't help. It's like, dude, and some of the names too. It's like, that's obviously, I know who you are, dude. But anyways, the general response I've gotten, especially with last week's commentary on the Hasbro story, boils down to, what do you know? You're not in touch with the audience anymore because you're a cis white middle-aged grognard. Or 2, well, wait, isn't this what you wanted? Didn't you want D&D to fail? Didn't you want Wizards to fail? Didn't you want Hasbro to fail? Isn't that why you boycotted us in July? And then a lot of the other people are like, oh, this is the end of Hasbro. This is the end of Wizards of the Coast. This is the end of D&D. Hasbro has destroyed themselves. Their writing's on the wall. Even Professor Dungeon Master has got a one coming up about how Hasbro needs D&D to stay alive. And for somebody who, you guys all claim panders, I'm going to say no. Hasbro does not need D&D to survive. Hasbro will be fine. Wizards of the Coast, on the other hand, so isn't this what I wanted? Isn't this what we wanted? Isn't this why we boycotted them? Anything? How dare I spend a year shitting on Hasbro and then be upset that they fired people? Isn't this what we wanted? You boycotted Hasbro. You boycotted Wizards of the Coast. They lost money, so of course they're firing people. That's what you wanted, right? Well, anybody who posts that obviously needs to reassess what happened in January and my relationship / people like mine relationship with Wizards, with Hasbro, with Dungeons and Dragons. Okay. And if you were actually paying attention to any one of the videos that I have made over the past year in regards to Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons knows, you would know exactly what I want from Hasbro, what I want from Wizards of the Coast, and why I was upset. And I assure you guys, January was not about me or any of my other fellow cis white middle-aged grognards. Because I don't play 5th edition. I don't run 5th edition. Other than, the shares of Hasbro stock I had nothing invested. If Dungeons and Dragons vanished from the face of the earth tomorrow, I'd be fine because I have a shelf full of games I could still play. I have an entire cloud full of PDFs of hundreds of different games that I've collected over a 40-plus year history that I can still play. There are people all over the world who play other games besides Dungeons and Dragons. And it's not like Hasbro could stop you from playing 5e if you wanted to play 5e, even if Hasbro said we're discontinuing 5e. It's not like the 5e stuff that's out there is going to go anywhere. So January wasn't about me or anybody in my side of the pool. I didn't care because I was still going to be able to play the games I was playing. It doesn't affect me if they fucked over the OGL. I cared about the people who were the future of the hobby. So that's why I talked about it. That's why I was so upset. That's why I'm still upset about how Hasbro is treating you, the fans, treating the actual players of 5e, and treating the future of the hobby. So January was not about me wanting D&D to die or anything like that. And being upset that Hasbro is terminating people, again, no, that's not what this is about. None of the people who were fired should have been fired, because those were all people who actually produced something. And saying, well, that's capitalism, that's what you wanted, you're like, absolutely right. This is the time of year where all the companies cut the fat. Hasbro's not the only one that did it. Hasbro's just the one we talk about. And if it was any other company, if it was Paizo or Mattel or Disney or Heineken, we probably wouldn't care. We wouldn't care because they haven't spent, a year being dumb, or the past 10 years being dumb. But Hasbro, and especially in regards to Dungeons & Dragons, has consistently shown a self-destructive tendency for the way they handle the license, leading us to where we are now. So, of course, I don't want anybody to fucking lose their jobs over Christmas. I understand that's how companies work. I worked in retail, and I worked in the studio system most of my adult life. And it's not what Hasbro did. It's the way they did it, and the way they're non-apologetic. And they're claiming they lost money when the only department of Hasbro that made money this year was Wizards of the Coast, specifically Magic the Gathering. And that's who the bulk of the terminations, got hit. So everybody's like, oh, well, D&D's doomed. Hasbro's doomed. Hasbro can't live without Dungeons & Dragons. Blah, blah, blah. Doom and gloom. Hasbro's dead. This is it. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm looking at 4 right now. Just all basically saying the same thing. Hasbro's dead. D&D's dead. Whatever. So this might sound weird to you coming from me, but Dungeons & Dragons will be fine. Hasbro will be fine. You're thinking too microcosm. You forget that Hasbro is a worldwide multi-billion-dollar company that has things all over the world. There's Hasbro product we don't even see in America. Hasbro Japan, Hasbro Europe, Hasbro Germany, Hasbro Australia, Hasbro Costa Rica. It's out there. G.I. Joe's been around for fucking ever, since World War II. Monopoly's been around for fucking ever. Play-Doh has been around for fucking ever. Hasbro will be fine. Hasbro does not care about the game of Dungeons & Dragons, okay? Armor class, hit points, that shit, they don't care. They don't care about the rules at all. They never have. That's why, they could cease publishing it tomorrow, be fine. They could hand off the rule set to somebody else and say, do whatever the fuck you want with it. We'll be fine. Don't need it. They definitely do not need Wizards of the Coast. All Wizards of the Coast is a production company. And they're farming off that production to other companies because, from a macrocosmic point of view, Wizards of the Coast kind of is sort of pointless and redundant now. There's plenty of other ways to do what Wizards of the Coast does better and cheaper, and that doesn't cause them as much bad publicity as Wizards of the Coast has been costing them since 4th edition. And it's not like this should be a surprise. Hasbro literally came out at 2020 PulseCon. The then CEO laid out clearly what the battle plan was from 2020 to 2027, and people are still surprised. I can't believe Hasbro did it. And Hasbro's like, we fucking told you we were going to do this. We've been telling you we were going to do this for 3 years. Pay attention. D&D, the name is fine, okay? D&D is not the rule set. D&D is an idea. And Hasbro is perfectly fine with how they know how to monopolize the recognition of the idea of D&D. They don't need a game. All they need is that imagery that we associate with it, that name. They put that name on a t-shirt. That t-shirt sells. That's pure profit. They put that name on a TV show or a movie. And even though the movie costs them, they're still, in the long run, going to make money off of it. They put that money on a breakfast cereal. Has D&D the flamethrower. D&D the sweatshirt. D&D the underoos. D&D figures, D&D maps, D&D books, D&D movies, D&D video games, D&D action figures, D&D Nerf, D&D Monopoly. That's pure profit. So Dungeons and Dragons, the name is fine. Sorry, it is. Hasbro, the multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation that makes G.I. Joe, Peppa the Pig, and Play-Doh, and Nerf, is fine. Getting rid of Dungeons and Dragons will not affect their overhead in the long runs. So all these doom and gloom people who are going, well, Hasbro's dead, D&D's dead, the world is over. It's like, no, it's not. I'm sorry. This has happened before. You have a very short memory when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons rise and fall. Like most of the 80s, when D&D was an afterthought and people were playing Rifts and GURPS and Vampire, and Hasbro, and Wizards of the Coast and whoever was just like, I don't know, make an adventure about spaceships. No one's buying it anyways. So yeah, it's not new. It's not the end of Dungeons and Dragons, the brand. Now, Dungeons and Dragons, the rule set, 5th edition. Sure, whatever. They might, who knows what their plans for that is. I don't even think they know what their plans are, considering how many people they terminated. Yes, exactly. Better and cheaper, and without the political nightmare. Though, of course, Renegade Press did have some political nonsense this year, but not as bad as Wizards. See, 7 Beetles of Doom. You get it. I don't need Wizards of the Coast to make Magic the Gathering. I don't need Wizards of the Coast to make Dungeons and Dragons. I don't need Wizards of the Coast to make board games. There's nothing to go back to my initial premise of how you should run a retail company. There is nothing Wizards of the Coast does that I cannot find somebody else to do better and cheaper. You don't sell anything I can't get anywhere else, especially today. You're selling the idea. You're not selling a product. You're selling the idea. That idea is Dungeons and Dragons, not the product, the idea. Hasbro doesn't give a fuck about the rule set. They haven't for years. It's painfully obvious. Magic is what makes them money. D&D, the sweatshirt, is what makes them money. They could hand off D&D, the IP, the rules to Renegade or WizKids or anybody else and say, here, take this OGL, OSR thing and just do whatever you want with it. But you can't call it D&D. You can have the rules. You can have the Gygax legacy, but you can't call it D&D. You can't use any of their names. You can't use Forgotten Realms or any of that shit. But fuck, we don't care. Do what you want with the rules. So the OGL January bullshit was not about me wanting to see Wizards of the Coast fail. And me being upset that people are losing their jobs is not because, well, this is what you wanted to happen, right? No, you guys don't understand. And you haven't been paying attention. But that's okay, because every time you post hate comments on my blog, you're still interacting, right? And that still sets off the algorithm. So go ahead, post as many comments as you want about what a horrible person I am. And I will thank you. That is absolutely true. We could go into how Hasbro dropped the ball on Power Rangers, especially this year, but that would be a whole separate vlog. But yes, oh my God. I mean, talk about printing money where you drop the ball. But even though they dropped the ball, Power Rangers is still going to make the money because Super Sentai still makes money and they still have their finger in the Super Sentai pool. And they are still the main distributor for anything related to Super Sentai here in the US. We just put the Power Rangers stamp on it. But, the role-playing game is definitely doing much better than the Power Rangers. If you watch the thing on Netflix, that 10-episode disaster, that was supposed to be the end of Power Rangers. Here, we'll do 10 episodes where we honor the 30-year history. You don't mention the 30-year history once. Other than 2 characters from SPD, where the legacy? Ooh, spaceships. Yeah, so that's a separate article. So that's the news. As we're going to be talking about it because I don't think the layoffs are over. A lot of people are like, fire Kyle Brink. Kyle doesn't do anything. So they're not going to fire him. You know, they fired people who actually produced stuff because they had a definite plan of what they think they're going to do with the future. Guys like Kyle who just, you know, come out and say stupid shit and then disappear for months. They're probably not going to fire Kyle because Kyle is a great scapegoat. We will focus a whole bunch of attention on Kyle the next time he says something stupid. And while we're focusing all that attention on Kyle, Hasbro will be doing other shit we don't pay attention to, like fucking up Power Rangers. Or opening a Peppa the Pig amusement park and raking in billions off of that. Or signing a deal with other TV shows for, you know, D&D TV shows and D&D movies and D&D cartoons and that D&D channel that doesn't exist. And stuff like that. So, yeah, D&D, the brand will be fine, guys. Hasbro will be fine. They've gone through this before. And the great cosmos of Hasbro production, D&D is a small asteroid compared to things like, you know, Nerf or Play-Doh or Monopoly or G.I. Joe or Peppa or Ponies or the upcoming digital revolution of video games. And when we talk about the E1 Studios and the production company that they sold off to compensate for the money they lost from D&D movies, people don't realize how many things E1 Studios made. I was on Amazon last night just browsing, looking for something to watch, and I stumbled across like 8 different movies produced by E1 in the last 5 years. And went from rom-coms to cheesy action to horror to buddy comedies. So E1 was chugging stuff out that we were just never aware of. So yeah, I mean, then they sold it off, but you know, it was obviously doing something considering how many movies I found last night without even trying that were produced by E1. It's just sidebar. Okay, so that's the news. We know that this is going to be the main story for the rest of the week. We know we're going to find horrible things to say about Hasbro and Wizards, and people are going to post things about what a horrible person I am for wanting this. You know, you're a middle-aged, cis, white, heterosexual male. You don't know anything about how the world works. You have no experience with D&D, blah, 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 blah. I've been playing for 2 years. I know way more about the hobby than you do, blah, 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 blah. Go fuck yourself, Condor. And all your other Verucas, because every time you talk shit about me, it's free press, just like all the shit we talk about Hasbro. So, yeah. Now's the point for a totally selfish, self-importantment. Hey, do you guys know I make crap? Yes, I do. I make a ton of stuff for a company called The Red Room. I have made it a complete line of monster things throughout the entire year, and I've made a superhero campaign setting called Wretched Vigilantes. If you go to the link down below, you can go to the Red Room site where all the stuff that I've made has been marked down for Christmas. So it's a great time to support a real producer of Dungeons and Dragons type stuff. That's me. Screw Hasbro. Buy my merch. I'll talk to y'all later. Stay safe out there. It's supposed to rain unless you live on the other side of the state where we're supposed to be getting like hurricanes in Florida and all along the East Coast. So stay safe out there. I mean, you know, unless you live in the middle of the thing where you're dealing with fires and tornadoes, stay safe out there. Just stay safe. It's the holidays. Let's not wish any ill or will on anybody who doesn't deserve it. And just, you know, enjoy the Christmas lights. Silver bells.